Some people try to predict the future. Some others prefer to build it. Nadim Taleb is not just a visionary of it, but an architect of what's coming next. Nadim is a serial entrepreneur that has founded several companies and created thousands of jobs all around the world in IE and network automation. But beyond tech and business, Nadim is a leader that prefers to put in the first place growth, culture, and people besides of numbers. Nadim, I am delighted to have you here. It's such an honor to be sat down to talk with you.
Thank you, Jose Antonio. I'm very excited to be here, and thank you for this lovely introduction.
First of all, I would love to know, and people would love to know, who is Nadim Taleb?
Well, I was born in Lebanon. I was born during the Civil War. I lived 15 years. That has marked me a lot because it took a big toll on me. My house was destroyed twice. My father was kidnapped, but returned safely, thank God. He's still alive, he's 95. But all this, hardship, I think, contributed in big ways to who I am. Even though I of course, don't crave for these days, but they definitely shaped me for who I turned out to be.
Which values of that childhood lets you to take the decisions you take nowadays in your businesses?
Compassion, probably the most. I mean, during the Civil War, you have to remember there's almost no government. It's a civil war. And, neighbors took care of each other. The way the team came together, was amazing. It's something I don't even see when I go back home right now. But the way I saw it for over 15 years, gave me an idea about teamwork and how people coming together, what they can create. There was a lot of, creative solutions to almost every problem. How we lived without, electricity, sometimes for weeks without water. We had to move around a lot. We had to be, creative, how to, not to be on the radar of, kidnappers or snipers or others. All of this the one thing I was left with is really the value of compassion and the power of teamwork, working together. And I think when you are under pressure, it pushes you to be creative. And that has stayed with me, I think, in the way I, put teams together, in the way I encourage teamwork, even in the education of my kids. I value schools that do a lot of project-based collaboration, teamwork. I don't believe in just, single-handedly actually doing accomplishments.
Which one are the hardest lessons you've learned as an entrepreneur?
Some of the hardest ones I would say is when you become too arrogant. I mean, I started my first company, I was in my 20s. I think, you're young, you're a bit more fragile in the sense of, people can appeal to your ego. There's a lot of, great, research done that, the job of a founder in general and a CEO as well is quite lonely. So you can be actually left alone and you can live in your own, if you want, fictional, life and story. So I think knowing how to seek feedback from the team, knowing how to create environments where there's healthy debates, knowing how to have different personalities in the team. Like, I don't look for uniformity. I look more actually, there's always, I think, just like you have maybe in a soccer team or any sports team, you have different functions on the field. There are people that I cherish a lot and I protect. For example, people that speak up, people that disagree with me, people that challenge me, even in front of everybody. So ensuring that there's no culture of fear, but there's culture for speaking up. This is very, very important because I learned probably much more in the hard days than the good days. It always looks like a nice, perfect graph, but there's been a lot of ups and downs. And, when you're on your way up, you're more likely to be arrogant. You're less likely to listen. You're more likely to be left alone. Mm-hmm. And people will tell you what you want to hear, ultimately, because people are working for you and they want to appeal to your ego. And but in the hard times, actually, you're forced to listen. And you're forced to saying, I got to try something different. I got to seek input. I got to change strategy. So it always goes back to the hard days shape me much more than the good days.
If we have to highlight something about your leadership, it will be culture. How is the challenge of aligning global teams internationally who have different cultures from themselves and work on the same purpose?
It's extremely hard. It's extremely hard. I'm very vocal with everybody that it would be much easier and probably more productive if we're all sitting in one office or one building. Or I personally, I never debate that. But we are, first we have businesses, in North America, Canada, US, Mexico. We have teams in Argentina, Colombia, and Mexico. We have businesses in Europe, and we have businesses in the Middle East, North Africa. And as such, it is impossible for all of us to be in the same office. But the nature also of what we're doing, we a lot of times deploy at clients. We have different teams, we have different companies. It makes it impossible for all of us to be together. But I think once you acknowledge that, you can work on everything else. But if you say, no, it doesn't make a difference now with Teams and Zoom and video conferencing, and yes, we can do once a year, let's say a company-wide event. I personally always start by saying, my nightmare, I tell the team, is not a competition that is highly funded, is a competition that is actually collocated and working together very well. If you have a team of 10, 20 engineers, but they are working together day in, day out, there's zero daylight in between them in their way of thinking and working together, they can innovate, they can even build some amazing products. And we have seen that. And especially today, actually, in the world of AI, we're calling it right now the power of the few. It's no longer the need to have, massive teams. The quality of the team and the dynamics is very important. So now, once we know that in our business, we don't have that luxury to be together, we have to work on everything else. So we create a lot of vehicles. For example, I have a call once a week that's called Be Curious with Ned, half an hour where anybody in the company can join. Sometimes I have, 20 people, sometimes I have 60 people on the call. Whoever has any questions, sometimes people join and just listen in, that's okay. And we always say there's no taboo questions. I encourage them to challenge me with anything they have. I learned from that call. I always feel refreshed leaving it, but also people feel heard and people actually provide input. That's an example. Of course, we have all hands virtually. We have some events. We try to encourage a lot when people are moving around to say, well, you're flying to Seattle, there's a team there, try to take them out to dinner. So all of the above. But we also do a lot of games if you want to know each other. For example, one that is inspired from one of my early mentors, Dr. Mark Rittenberg from Berkeley, is actually, we stand up when we have a summit and I tell your story. So of course you share with me some details, but I tell your story to honor it. And once you go through these exercises and you understand the intrinsic motivations of people, what they have been through, why they're acting the way they are, maybe some rough childhood, rough environment they grew up in, they felt abandoned, then you understand a lot their fears and their motivations, and it makes it much easier to work together. All of these have led probably to the way that we work together.
Yeah, I'm absolutely amazed of that point of view. And listening to you, a question has appeared on me. So when you're building a team, what do you prefer? Someone who's completely aligned with that culture and it's a true leader, but with a bit less of skill, less of knowledge, or someone who's really good at technical knowledge, but is not that aligned with that culture?
There's a lot of research on this, and I think there's a slightly difference of opinion. I think there's a minimum always that you have to agree on. What is the minimum that you're not willing to sacrifice? Those are, for me, for example, the core values of the company. For example, one of which actually is, care to create wisdom is one of our core values. So, and you have to take a stance. For some people, they might say, look, the only thing I will never tolerate is people that, steal and lie and, they might have a very light, if you want, values. Other people might have more values and they are very serious about everybody sharing these values. I think this is the first thing that an entrepreneur and I've seen actually entrepreneur and CEO that might be okay having people that steal if they are really smart technically. For us, we are very, I would say, religious about the core values. We care that people at least abide by these core values. From there, everything beyond there, for us, we cherish the diversity of thinking and if you want, the approaches. I have a good tolerance, I would say. There are a lot of things written about, these gems, if you want. A lot of times come with arrogance. A lot of times actually they maybe sometimes solo players. Sometimes they might be over competitive. I have a good degree of, again, as long as they don't cross the line of the core values upon which we drew a line and said, this is the bare minimum everybody has to abide with. But I think that, we want to also, we like to coach. We like to mentor. We like to, I've seen people that also have joined us. They were young. We give them the benefit of the doubt. And after 5-7 years, I've seen a very different person as well. So I believe in the power of changing if a bare minimum of values of honesty, of, caring, whatever exists. But some people, that's all they know. Even schooling systems, I've looked into it a lot lately. Some actually are based completely on competitiveness. And I've seen people coming out of these environments that for them, it's like, I feel good if I'm better than you. So what does it take to bring them all together? It takes, a common vision. It takes, common goals also in the incentives. Because even if they're very competitive, if I say, your goal is you, the three of you actually work on this thing together and succeed, you're more likely to collaborate.
What advice would you like to give to young entrepreneurs?
One advice that if you want, known for, because this is a massive topic of passion of mine, and I teach about it and I lecture, is the power of bootstrapping, and it's highly misunderstood. Because when people hear about bootstrapping, the first thing that comes across their mind is this guy is anti-VC or doesn't like VC, and it's far from it. Actually, bootstrapping doesn't mean even that you will never raise money. It means to push the need to raise money until such time where you absolutely have to. But one exercise I do in a class that I love is you take a class of 20 or 30, whatever. And I always look at them and saying, if you all actually put business plan and go seek money, maybe 1, 2 people might succeed in raising money. So what about the other 18 or the other 28 people? Are you gonna all go home? Will you give up actually starting your business because you cannot raise money? Or will you look for ways to bootstrap if possible? There are business models that are impossible to bootstrap. If you want to create, a cure for Alzheimer and you have to do a lot of R&D for 7 years and spend, of course not. And there's some people also with some special circumstances. But even if from these 20 people, I can convert another 5 people to start their business without the need for funding, either forever or for another year or 2 until such time where they have to raise money, I feel very good. I feel I've been able to contribute to creating 5 more entrepreneurs. And those people actually will go in turn to create more jobs and possibly more entrepreneurs. And it's the power of multiplication here is very big. So I would say learn about this early on, how to actually create something with scarcity. If someone gave you or me 1 million or 10 million or 1 billion, we'll find a way to spend it. It's very easy. But the ability to think with scarcity is a very different mindset. And that's probably one of the more things actually that the Civil War has taught me actually, is to live with scarcity and be able to innovate solution of survivals with scarcity.
I have to say that I feel completely aligned with that point of view, and I share it entirely. I would like to hop on security. Personally, what do you think are the biggest threats of security network operation are facing nowadays?
Sure. All networks, I personally would tend to say that they're getting more fragile and not less fragile. And even then, I'm going to tell you, I'm not 100% sure because it's a big debate. I would say AI, if used responsibly, can make networks more resilient. But from what we have seen so far, we have seen actually more outages, some for known actually causes and some for unknown causes. There's a lot of speculation about, all kinds of things, even the power outage in Madrid or in Spain, as to what was the cause of it. Even cyber attacks were mentioned as one of the possibilities. I don't think there's a clear yet explanation that's given to us. But I would just say that network operations face the threat of security more than ever. Because if you think about the past, there was, one technology, let's say they would use, 1 or 2 vendors like an Ericsson or Nokia. Today, everything has been, virtualized, is in the cloud. There's a variety of vendors and the possibilities or the threats to the networks are much higher. So, for example, we tackle it in many ways. In one way, for example, what we do in anomaly detection is a way to look for actually anomalies that could be security threats. That's an example. In what we do actually in expanding the capacity of testing, even though you cannot catch everything in a lab, but actually you can build more resilient networks. The ability to look for root cause of problems very quickly is very, very important. So if you have a problem, how quickly can you get to identifying what the problem is? But after a lot of debate in my mind, I'm pretty sure that if AI is used responsibly, that will make the networks more resilient. But I don't think we're there, and I think actually the network operations actually is more fragile and more exposed than before. And visibility in particular is a topic that is very important. It's a prerequisite to enhancing security in the network operations.
As a co-founder and CEO of an artificial intelligence company, Reailize, how do you think AI can defend us better than creating threats to us?
I think, AI, if embraced responsibly, as much as you can have eyes on things, I think AI can multiply our potential. I think there's a lot of discussions, for example, and let's say insecurities around AI that it will replace us. And I'm not here to say that it will probably eliminate certain jobs. But I think that, for example, when it comes to the question of security, this is an area where I feel like you can't have enough people on it. Actually, even if you have eyes on it, you need the power of AI, this multiplying effect to create more resilient networks. And if you want, to more secure networks. So AI, there's no question for me in everything we looked at. It's the premise of AI is that you can, look at trends and you can do very predictive things. So being able to predict an issue or a threat is very important. Being able to have more visibility, I think, is a very important. And examples such as I gave, expanding the testing, getting to the root cause of things, identifying and predicting anomalies, all those are examples where AI, or let's put differently, without AI, I don't think those would be possible. Even if you add a lot of people, I think, obviously we know what we can do that AI can't, but we know also what AI can do that we cannot, which is this ability to look at a very large amount of data sets and predict an issue and to give you the visibility into the problem.
In your opinion, which one is that one investment companies should be doing in the following 5 years?
Visibility is one for sure. I look at it as a prerequisite. I look at it also as, of course, prediction. And there's a lot of already very advanced, predictive. And there's a whole gamma of things. An example I'm very passionate about, as you probably know, is video intelligence. This is, for example, an example that is not just internal to the network only, but of course it is part of a network. It's part of you're looking at data and you're trying to create more secure communities and cities and others. So, for example, video intelligence, we like to talk about the concept of zero trust. I think that humans have a very important role to play. But I think, again, AI here can multiply the effect of being able to flag incidents to the security, for example. Zero trust is also to ensure that if, for example, somebody missed on seeing something, that it can be flagged. It's the same concept in everything we do, even network operations. You can be exposed to a lot of alarms, and as much as you have teams that are actually flooded, if you want, with data. But I think knowing what to focus your attention on, I think, is very important.
Nadim, I would like to finish this interview by knowing what is success for you, personally and professionally.
Yeah, in 2000, before I started my first company, I was working in Silicon Valley. And my boss at that time told me, if you make money your end goal, you're not going to go too far. And honestly, I went out of his office puzzled, and I thought, I don't know what he's talking about. But it is very true. I think money is extremely important, but it's a byproduct of other things. And I think each one of us should, this is not a formula that works for everybody. Each one of us should understand what gets your heart beating. How do you feel very accomplished? How do you go to bed excited, saying, I'm going to have a good night's sleep because I have tomorrow morning in a very important mission. For me, has been the people aspect. It might sound cliche, but I'll tell you why it was very personal to me. Having lived the Civil War, actually I have a blog on Medium called Why I'm Obsessed with Collecting Passports. We have in our family, 4 or 5 passports, different nationalities. Is because I've seen how I was stuck in the war because we did not have, for example, the right passport and the right money to escape, for example. That's why also for decades I did not even go to Cyprus, because it reminded me how the rich kids went to Cyprus and the poor were left behind. Because Cyprus is right across the water from Lebanon. So for me, this people aspect is very, personal. I was able to sponsor more than 1,000 persons to come from very poor countries into the US to do the H-1B visa, to get the green cards. And a lot of them, I feel bad to say that, but I forget their names. And I get sometimes emails saying, look, I'm working for General Motors. I'm an executive in this consulting company. And you remember like 19 years ago, whatever. Sometimes people send me the pictures with, the American flag that they got the citizenship and they're very proud. All these stories are very, very, very heartwarming for me. It is also creating jobs, even though sometimes there's also job losses when you lay off people, which is very hard and takes a toll on me personally. But still, you say, look, despite everything, despite the ups and downs, despite everything, was I able to create over 1,000 H-1B visa for people to come experience the American dream, having been in the US primarily for 23 years? Yes. Was I able to create, ultimately tens of thousands of jobs, years, if you'd like, over a large number of years, over 20 years? I say, okay, I think, my relationship, my conscience is calm, and I feel I'm doing the right things. And from there, the aspect of mentorship becomes very important. To see somebody growing, having 3 little children, maybe with children it's even more satisfying, but it's almost equal. To see somebody young working for you and seeing them growing, seeing them maturing, seeing them getting over their own fears and anxiety is amazing. Also, a very satisfying experience for me.
Nadim, I would like to thank you personally for this interview. I think loads of people are gonna feel inspired by your words.
Thank you so much. That's what I always say is you will meet a lot of other people that have different formulas. I do hope I inspire some. And I want to thank you very much for having me and for this amazing interview. I love the questions and the exchange of ideas.
Thank you so much. And I wish you the best of lucks in the future in all of the projects you have about to do.
Jose Antonio, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.